Good afternoon, my name is Dave Norton from Discovering New England History, and we're going to begin episode 3 of the history of rock and roll in New England. And we're covering the period from when it first began, like 1956 to 1971. We're covering that period. And you're probably running what I have with these two records here, and we're going to get right into it. Obviously, the Beach Boys Surfing USA are surfing, and then Shutdown is Cars. So we're going to start right off here, and you can see why this is a New England story here. Gary Usher is a fellow that doesn't get a lot of attention or a lot of respect, certainly, from Grafton, Massachusetts. And his family, when he was very young, moved out to Los Angeles, and he befriended Brian Wilson, okay? And he started writing songs with Brian Wilson. They kind of hung out together and wrote songs. Now, he was on actually 5 different Beach Boy albums. Surfin' Safari, where he wrote with Brian Wilson all these songs, 409, Surfin' USA, The Lonely Sea, Surfer Girl, he wrote In My Room, Shutdown Volume 2, just a small album cut called Pom Pom Playgirl, and All Summer Long We'll Run Away. Now, these 3 albums all had to do with, in the surfing period, there's Gary Usher and Brian Wilson. And 409 was written in October 1962, Lonely Sea, March 1963, In My Room, September 1963. And these are all on the LPs. A lot of everything was produced, a lot of it in LPs back then. Now, Gary Usher, Brian Wilson, okay, they started this song called 409. And I guess Gary said to Brian, or they said, we need something else. We've got this song, it sounds really good, but we need something else to kind of make it different. So Gary said, hey, I've got my new Chevy Impala. How about if we take a tape recorder outside and I crank it up and I run the Impala down Cornblum Avenue in Hawthorne, California. And Brian said, yeah, that's a great idea. So that's what they did. They put the tape recorder out on the sidewalk. Gary got in his car and he just ripped right down the street. And he taped it. That's the sound you hear of the engine running and all that stuff, revving up on 409. That's what they came up. And on the top there, you can see that's a 409 engine. And next to it, typical early reel-to-reel tape recorder. That's all they had. And Gary Usher drove a Chevy Impala, but it only had a 348 engine. And the tape recorder was borrowed from a next-door neighbor, David Marks. Now, we had another song. This is, we go to Manhattan Beach, California. He's putting together the surfing album, Surfing USA. And Gary Usher and Brian wrote this song called The Lonely Sea. It's a ballad sung strictly by Brian Wilson. And now they had to record something different. They wanted something different in the song. We want to hear the ocean coming in, but we don't want to hear all the background noises of cars coming down, horns going off, people talking. So they waited till like 2 o'clock in the morning, and they took the tape recorder and they took it down to the beach right here. That's a picture of Manhattan Beach, both of these pictures here. And they didn't get the sound they wanted. So I guess Gary went around from house to house. They finally got a knocking on the door, I guess, and he finally got a 100-foot extension cord. Plugged it into their outside outlet, ran it down the beach, and they got all the waves breaking, and once again on the tape recorder. It's quite innovative. Now they had another one. They wanted to write a song, and of course they lived in a middle class neighborhood in Hawthorne, California, and Gary had wrote part of the lyrics, and so did Brian. And In My Room, 1963, actually came number 23. And their house is long gone. It was demolished. I guess a new road went through the area. And so that's actually Hawthorne, California, what it looked like back in the day. and that was a great song too. Then they had 409, but they put it on their first album. And in the meantime here, Gary started working with a group of people in the studio called the Wrecking Crew. And Gary was really good. 4 songs he put on this. This record came out just before the Beach Boys record in the middle, shut down. And a lot of songs of all different groups had to do with hot rods. And of course, 409 they put on there by the Beach Boys. They also had 4 other songs on there by the Wrecking Crew under the direction of Gary Usher. They called the group the Superstocks. And the people in the group that recorded that he directed was Glenn Campbell, Billy Strange, Leon Russell, Hal Blaine on drums, Ray Pullman on the bass, and Steve Douglas. So they actually had 5 songs on that album, and it was very, very successful. So then the Beach Boys said, "Hey, instead of surfer music, we're gonna branch out and do hot rod music." So in October 1963, they came out with this album, Little Deuce Coupe, put 409 on it and the other songs. Now, at that point, Gary Usher kind of expanded, got back to the Wrecking Crew, and he put together an album called Thunder Road for the Superstocks. Half of it is instrumentals, and half of it he actually sings a lead on it. That was February 1964. So you can see Gary was really moving up in the music industry. Now, with his experience with the Wrecking Crew, he was turned out to be a great producer. Along comes a group called the Byrds, and they asked Gary to be their producer. And he actually produced 3 albums for the Byrds after he did not produce or work with Brian Wilson. Younger Than Yesterday on the top left, 1967. Of course, one of the songs on there is So You Want to Be a Rock and Roll Star. The Notorious Byrd Brothers in the middle there in their song in 1968, I Wasn't Born to Follow. And then he also produced what is considered in rock and roll one of the finest albums ever produced. And the reason that it was considered that is because at that time no one was into country rock. It's basically classified as one of the earliest country rock songs with the Byrds, and the song came out, You Ain't Going Nowhere. And there's a picture of the Byrds that he knew very well on the lower right. Now we're going to go over the songs from New England, and we're going to go over by the years, because a lot of times when you listen to your stereo or listen to your transistor radio, you associate the song with the years. So I thought I'd sort them this way. 1956, In the Still of the Night by the Five Satins. 57, To the Isle by the Five Satins. Of course, they're from New Haven. And also Bad Boy of the Jive Bombers from Rhode Island. We're going to go down through these. 1958, Summertime, Summertime by the Jamies from Massachusetts. 59, Freddie Cannon hit number 3 with Way Down Yonder, New Orleans, 1960. Gene Pitney wrote this song for Bobby V, Rubber Ball, and it hit number 6. 1961, now New England really started into rock and roll. All these number 1 songs. Michael by the Highwaymen from Connecticut, Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, Gene Pitney from Connecticut. Tallahassee, Lassie, Freddie Cannon, Massachusetts. Hello, Mary Lou, Gene Pitney wrote that song for Ricky Nelson. Town Without Pity, Gene Pitney. Ghost Riders in the Sky, Ramrods, are also from Connecticut. Transistor Sister, Freddie Cannon, and I Want to Love My Life Away with Gene Pitney, number 39. 1962, if you turned on your radio, you'd be listening to He's a Rebel. Now, the Crystals had it out, but Gene Pitney's the one that wrote it, so he gets partial credit, certainly, or almost full credit for being number 1. And, of course, the Monster Mash, Bobby Pickett from Massachusetts, Gene Pitney, Only Love Can Break a Heart, Freddie Cannon, the famous Palisades Park, number 3, Half Heaven, Half Heartache, Gene Pitney, number 12, and Torture by Chris Jensen from Connecticut. 1963, what would we listen to? Well, Hey Girl by Freddie Scott from Providence, Mecca by Gene Pitney, 24 Hours from Tulsa, Gene Pitney, True Love Never Runs Smooth, Gene Pitney. You can see where Gene Pitney is coming into his own now. And actually, In My Room was taken off that album, and Gary Usher co-wrote it with Brian Wilson. 1964, once again, 3 Gene Pitney songs in the top 40. It Hurts to Be in Love, I'm Gonna Be Strong, Last Chance to Turn Around, Abigail Beecher, Freddie Cannon, Massachusetts. 1965, Action by Freddie Cannon, Looking Through the Eyes of Love by Gene Pitney, and New York's a Lonely Town by the Tradewinds. They're from Providence. 1967, the Cowsills, number 2 in The Rain in the Park and Other Things. They also had Indian Lake, number 10. Fifth Estate from Connecticut, Ding Dong the Witch is Dead. And the Cowsills again with number 21, We Can Fly. 1968, one of the last songs Gene Pitney wrote, He's a Heartbreaker, number 16. 1969, Na Na Na, Hey Hey, Kiss Him Goodbye, Steam from Connecticut, number 1. Hair from the Cowsills, number 2. Spirit in the Sky, great song. Norman Greenbaum from Massachusetts. 1970 now, the Carpenters from Connecticut. They hit with Close to You. They also hit with We've Only Just Begun. And then James Taylor came on the scene, and he hit with Fire and Rain. 1971, once again, James Taylor, You've Got a Friend, Rainy Days and Mondays, Carpenters. Sweet Mary, the Wadsworth Mansion, a group from Rumford, Rhode Island, hit number 7 in the country. Hot Rod Lincoln, from lead guitar player from the Commander Cody Band, hit number 9. Bill Kirchen. And those are the songs you would have heard from New England. Definitely well represented. Now, there are a lot of things that are happening now. The times are changing, and a lot of these people that were artists had to go on the road and tour. So I'm going to go through at least a couple of the famous concerts that came to New England, which was really never done before. It's amazing. So the Beach Boys started their concert tour at the Bushel Memorial, September 1964. My buddy and I both got tickets, and the Beach Boys had concerts in New England at Hartford, Connecticut, Providence, Rhode Island, Boston, Massachusetts, and Worcester, Massachusetts. And that was the first concert I ever saw. 1964, I think I was a junior in high school. Then the Beach Boys tour, September 1964, Bushel Memorial Theater, Hartford, Connecticut. There's a picture here. I picked up a nice brochure that they handed out, and there's one of the pictures on the inside. That's a great souvenir that I have. And like all the concerts, I kind of, after the concert, I would sit down and write down all the songs that all these groups I saw sang. And you can see they did their, just about all the songs that they had recorded at the time. In red, of course, was 409, which was co-written with Gary Usher. Let's Go Trippin', they did, instrumental, by Dick Dale from Massachusetts. And he also did In My Room, co-written with Gary Usher. And you can see all the songs here. It's what an incredible concert. Now, other acts were sort of getting together. They have to promote their records. And Gene Pitney, he was very famous. You remember, he had all those top 40 hits, 16 of them. So he put together all these different groups, got them together, and they got on a tour bus, and they went around New England, actually around the country. You can see on the left there, they played the Palace at Old Orchard Beach. That's up in Maine. And the groups he had with him here were the Buckinghams, the Music Explosion, the Easy Beats, and Fifth Estate, and the Happenings. Then here's another one here on the right, Memorial Auditorium, Chattanooga, Tennessee. And he had Sonny and Cher. He had Bobby Goldsboro, Edwin Starr, Gary U.S. Bonds, Bobby V, the Chiffons, and the Dixie Cups. That's what they did, and generally each of these acts here would sing 3 songs. Then a year later, in the summer after I graduated from high school, 1965, Dick Clark got onto this, and he sent around what they called a caravan of stars. And in Hartford, Connecticut, they came. There's a copy of the pamphlet that they had, Caravan of Sand on the left. And that was amazing. That's the first English group I ever saw. It was really an incredible concert. Peter and Gordon. And once again, I wrote down all the groups that were there. Of course, Freddie Cannon from Massachusetts. And then I saw Lou Christie, Brian Howland, Bobby V, Tom Jones, Tommy Rowe, Billy Joe Royal, Gary Lewis and the Playboys, and Peter and Gordon. And nobody knew who Tom Jones was. That's when he was first introduced. But he did a great job. And in case you want to, I want to associate some of the songs that I heard there. Take Good Care of My Baby, Bobby V. Sheila, Tommy Rowe. Sealed with a Kiss, Brian Hyland. Palisades Park, Freddie Cannon. Lou Christie, Two Faces of I. Peter and Gordon, A World Without Love. Gary Lewis and the Playboys, This Diamond Ring. Billy Joel Royal, Down in the Boombox, and Tom Jones, his new hit, It's Not Unusual. And for I think the cost was under $5 for the concert. Unbelievable. Now, moving on, the Wildweeds was a great group from Connecticut. They had the song No Good to Cry. And they didn't have very good producers, so they didn't really make it that big. But it was amazing. I was a student at the University of Connecticut, and there's a picture of my first dorm when I was a freshman. At Yukon, it's called The Jungle, where they put all the freshman men, 1967. Wildweeds came and they played there, and I'll never forget that. What an incredible concert. They took all the tables out and they set up their band, and they just went and hit one song after another. And that's right, first time I ever saw Al Anderson. And the song there that they had is No Good to Cry, which I have a couple of these songs here on my desk. But anyway, it was just an incredible concert, and I'll show you that in the next few seconds. And then they also appeared with the Doors at the Oakdale Theater in Connecticut. They opened for the Doors, and you can see these hefty prices back then. $3 for the cheap seats and $5 for the real close-up seats. And there it is, No Good to Cry. Now, another way to see all this New England sound that we have is I took and I organized those songs from 1956 and 1971 that hit the top 10, and I categorize them by just the number that they were. Like these are all number 1. Michael by the Highwaymen, He's a Rebel. Monster Mash, Bobby Boris Pickett. Kiss Him Goodbye, Steam. Close to You, the Carpenters, and You've Got a Friend. And hitting number 2 is Only Love Can Break a Heart, Gene Pitney. And now I found it. Here's the record right here. I've actually got the original jacket on it. Only Love Can Break a Heart, Gene Pitney, Music Horror Records. And The Rain in the Park and Other Things by the Cowsills. Hair, also by the Cowsills. We've Only Just Begun by the Carpenters, 1970. And I have that record, 45, with the original, here we go, with the original sleeve on it. Number 1 in the country, from Connecticut. And of course, Rainy Days and Mondays was also on here. Now, Freddie Cannon. Some of these I have jackets on, and that, there's Freddie Cannon. He was on the top 10. For Way Down Yonder, New Orleans, that's the original. This is almost immaculate condition, Swan Records. Then number 4, then Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, Gene Pitney. Rubber Ball, Gene Pitney wrote that for Bobby V. Tallahassee, Lassie, Freddie Cannon. It Hurts to Be in Love, Gene Pitney. And I have this record, and I pulled up here, Sweet Mary by the group from Rumford, Rhode Island. And here's the Wadsworth Mansion. Here's their 45. If you haven't heard this song, look it up. It's very catchy. Then here we go. Hello, Mary Lou also hit the top 10. And that's a song Gene Pitney gave to Ricky Nelson. Also, Gene Pitney had his own song, number 9, I'm Gonna Be Strong. Hello, Mary Lou, Ricky Nelson, Gene Pitney, 1961. I'm Gonna Be Strong, Gene Pitney, 1964. And then we have Hot Rod Lincoln, Bill Kirchen. And he's from Bridgeport, Connecticut. And I have his single right here. And if you don't recognize that guitar opening that Bill Kirchen's done, that's amazing. That's one of the most recognizable, I guess, beginning guitar riffs in rock and roll. Thanks to Bill Kirchen. And going on here, we've got Hey Girl, Freddie Scott from Providence, and the Cowsills hit number 10 with Indian Lake. Now a little bit about Bill Kirchen. There he is. I got 2 red arrows showing him. And there he is with the Commander Cody band. You can see the arrows pointing at him there. Much longer hair back then. Great personality, great friend. We were both from Connecticut, and I met him, and very, very easy to talk to, great guy. And of course, I have to show this. I went to the small opening at a small place in Taunton, Massachusetts, right? And it was like hardly anybody in there to see this. It was in the middle of the week. I think there was only 10 or 12 of us in there. So Bill shows up, and he played all his songs, just 3-piece, had drums, and he also had a bass player. He played all his concert as if he was in front of, 5,000 people. What a professional, right? So I knew a little bit about him. I said, hey, I'm from Connecticut too. And let me go back to that picture. So I asked him, I said, that's the famous guitar I know that you've always played. It's probably just as famous as Willie Nelson's guitar. Do you mind, he was taking a break, do you mind if I take a picture of that? And so he came up to me and he said, how about if I let you put my guitar on and I take your picture? So there I am on the right. That is amazing. And there we are, two Connecticut boys all alone. He really, really played a great, incredible guitar. So I'm pictured there with a guitar, that opening riffs of Hot Rod Lincoln. Now we're getting near the end here. Some of these folks have died. In March 2019, Dick Dale from Massachusetts. He's buried Hollywood, California, and that's how they have it, memorial with his ashes. And he's amazing with the King of the Surf guitar. Gene Pitney, that's his house. That's how he grew up, very Rockville, Connecticut. And they actually put a park down there in Rockville, Connecticut, and he died in April of 2006. They had a tribute to him, Rockville, Connecticut. And Karen Carpenter, Westlake Village, California, she died in February of 1983. And of course, here are all the 25 artists we talked about in this this program here. Here's a couple. I just wanted to bring a couple more records. Here's that record 409. Now, if you take a close look on it, you probably can't. Under 409, you can see Gary Usher's name on it. And here's the other one did. In My Room, 409. See, Brian Wilson, Gary Usher. And here's the other one, was in the Super Stocks. Orchestra conducted by Gary Usher. And this is amazing here. Here's one is with the Byrds. My Back Pages, and if you look on the close on there, produced by Gary Usher. Famous song by the Byrds. And Let's Go Trippin' by Dick Dale. This is the original song, the original record he had back in the day. So that concludes my presentation. Have a good evening.